Part 3, Tell Them I Am Real, an early morning surprise. In October 2001, I was working in Guam, an island in the North Pacific, part of Marinas Island. A visit from Jesus was the furthest thing from my mind, but at 2 a.m., he arrived very unexpectedly. The previous night I was up until 3 a.m. and was anxious in getting to bed. I was in bed by 10 p.m. but was curiously awakened at 2 a.m. I was awakened from crying and could not stop. It was a very intense cry from a dream involving my dad and another little boy, who I thought was my only son, Nicholas. My dad was scolding him, informing him he did not have time to sing, only continued the instruction from my father. This was the exact way my father treatment of me growing up. I never lived up to his expectations of a worker and laborer, which is what he thought would be my future. I remember one Sunday on our way to church. There was an open ditch where men had been working, and my father exclaimed, "You see that ditch? That is what you will be doing in a few years when you grow up." In reply, "No, I will be working in an office with air conditioning, not in the hot sun." I was unaware of my destiny, but guess I was right. Manual labor was not a part of my future. My father died in 1978. Since that time, I have felt closer to him more while dead than alive. Days before his death, I was able to unveil my real father that had been hiding behind a veil of firmness and inflexibility. After the dream, I continued to cry much greater than before, at which time, I decided to get on my knees and pray, thanking God for all the things He had done for me. As I was about to finish, this strange force entered my body. I was so shocked and concerned, as I didn't know its origin. Without knowing the reason why, I asked, "Jesus, is that you?" Immediately, I heard bold laughter and amusement. Immediately, I started laughing, realizing this entire experience was coordinated and orchestrated by Jesus. I ran around in my underwear at 2 a.m. laughing and pointing my finger, as though He was in the room. Well, He was, but I had no visual concept of His presence, but His presence was more real than a physical presence could ever be, but, continually exclaiming, "I can't believe you did this to me," and continued laughing hysterically. His voice was only a cerebral linkage, allowing me access for the time we were together. His voice sounded as it was a small stream trickling down a path, as is a brook. However, I didn't really notice the sound and tone of his voice until a few minutes later. Throughout his presence, I felt so grandiose and exponentially excited. There are no descriptive words in the human language to communicate my feelings and emotions. It was an esoteric and impenetrable feelings, having extraordinary emotions, excitements and sensations. I have never felt happier and at peace. This feeling of joy and elations had total control of my body and thinking. It was a feeling of total escalation. Speaking in terms of wealth and monetary substance, I had been a childhood friend of Bill Gates, and somehow we were lost contact and rediscovered each other, and he wanted to share his billions with me. This would be a material representation of how incredible life would be, but still not enough, as a representation of the way I was feeling. I asked him about work and the related issues I had been confronted, and my present girlfriend, who had just left the previous night, I was dating, and he said, "Don't worry about it for both." For future reference, the job and the girlfriend would both end, accordingly. At about this time, after about conversing with him for about 15 minutes, he began to discuss something with me, but I could not hear what he was saying. He told me to listen with my heart. I thought that was kind of strange, but I obeyed, and strangely enough, I began to hear what he was telling me with my heart. It was then I began to notice his voice. It reminded me of a small stream below our house, that fed a lake below. I would always go in the spring, starting as a child, as all the flowers had started blooming smelling really great. The stream made a very delicate trickly noise, as it ran through the woods to the lake. His voice was the same sound, totally different than the expected sound of bolstering thunder enough to shatter the earth. However, it was so soft, indulgent and forgiving. He said, "All I want you to do is tell people I am real." At the time I was only thinking it was telling people he was real, but being Jesus, he made things more personal than only explaining his virtues. Persona and his life were real, but the entire experience of having a relationship with him was real, which is at the heart of any connection or association. While he was conversing with me, I could not hear him. That is why I was told to listen with my heart, as this is where the relationship lies. He will always be found in my heart, as this is where his communication will be initiated, and he will always be found is in the heart. In ending the chat, after telling me what he wanted me to do, he said, "I will always be with you, just you and me, forever." It was the most magnificent, memorable, extraordinary, and complete experience of my life. I was with the Creator of the universe and the power of the universe with me in my room of my condo on the 10th floor. I remember reading about people and experiencing a conversation with God, and I told him, "I never hear from you. It would be great to have a conversation with you." Well, he finally came and brought more than just a conversation. It was an epic engagement, more than I ever expected, completely engaging all my senses with a soothing refreshing confidence of all future events of the ages lasting a lifetime. Part 3, Analysis of the message. Now, going back to the original demands, God instructing me what to do. He said, "All I want you to is tell them I am real." God is real, and I am not sure how I can be or present him more real than he can. I am limited in what I can do and say, however, I can present a case representing how real he has been for me. Even in this presentation, I have shown the real part of God in my life in trying to convey that in my text and my interpretation of how he has manifested reality in my life. My reaction in being in his presence was more real than this life. It was absolutely dominating, all nurtured by this thing he has for me called don't know how many people he has chosen to present his message. Am I one of many or only a few? Not sure. Why was I chosen for this task? I have not that many people nor have an agenda that will require me to meet many people. My career has been in a continuation of instability, for a while, partially, as I thought I was behind my peers and was trying to take new positions allowing advancement. In doing so, maybe remaining longer with an employee rather than moving to a perceived greater opportunity was not the best idea, in hindsight. Sooner or later, a new employer does not see your true potential or does not desire to see, and a decision is required to stay or leave. Regardless, none of these positions seem to place me the right position in doing what God requested I do. Therefore, you find yourself in a non-functional position, not meeting any requirement by man or God. Regardless of the financially stressed position I have found myself in, Jesus chose me in representing him. Jesus made the right choice in selection me, as he does not make mistakes. However, I want to live up to those standards he maintains in me. God made his demand known over 20 years ago. I told my friends and family about this affirmation, but never was able to present to a larger audience. Maybe God only had a few specific people he desired I tell, but maybe many others. He never mentioned a specific number of people or provided any details on how to submit this request. I did draft a book placing an entire chapter on this subject, but it was never published. By the way, the book version is totally different than this.